So welcome to Evolving Media in the Age of AI, because we haven't said that term in the last 10 minutes. We're going to say it for the next hour. But here's what's really fun about the way the content was developed. I think we're always really thoughtful about how we do content for TCE. What happened this year is what we have been discussing internally. We realized these are the same conversations we're having with our clients. These are the same conversations we're having in the marketplace. Why don't we just bring it into TCE and have the conversation with all of our key stakeholders, and then you all get to hear it as well, right? And that's exactly how this came about. And that's part of us making sure that we see what's happening in the marketplace, what's coming up next, how can we address it before you even know it's a need, how can we put it on our roadmap? And so we work with Forrester for a lot of those conversations, and Nikhil is from Forrester. And Mick is on our team, and they'll introduce themselves here in a second. But I'm giving you a grounding statement that this started as a very nerdy conversation. I don't know, maybe 6 months or so ago. We said, this is going to continue to evolve, and let's chat through it when we get to TCE and see where we sit in that moment. And so here we are. So this is really exciting for me. My promise to you is that I will not get overly nerdy today. My job is to keep us on time and things that are relevant. So that's the goal. The overall goal for this session as well. So just so you all know, what does AI mean for marketers? We're going to talk through those definitions today. We want to make sure you have actionable takeaways for your teams, because there's a stat sitting on the screen that I'm sure surprises no one. ChatGPT is processing 2.5 billion messages a day. That's a lot of messages. But what does that mean when you leave here? What are you going to do with that information, and what's coming next so that you can prepare your teams, your dealers, your rooftops for what those types of shocking stats mean for their business, right? So when we say AI in this conversation, again, we'll just ground ourselves. LLM-powered search and assistance. That's going to be a big topic today. We were having a conversation at breakfast that turned into a great topic of how do you make sure that you're not competing on keywords based on national, regional, local. That's now moving into the LLM space as well. And so we're going to talk through some of that today. We can talk more about it in the roundtable tomorrow. AI and creative. There's a lot. I mean, if any of you have played with AI creative, it can be entertaining. As we saw yesterday, as Paul mentioned, it needs human guidance. But what does that mean, and how can you optimize things in real time? How can it work for you, not against you? What does AI mean in the purchase journey, right? Because we're seeing things like pricing and decision and consumer journey changes at every touch point along a thought process. And you know, Desiree mentioned this morning, we're not necessarily looking at demographics, and Omar touched on this yesterday, so it was a really good pull through. We are looking at individual experiences, and we're looking at patterns in behavior. And the reality is, although there's a lot of verticals in this room, the same person can purchase a generator, can go stop at Wendy's. They can decide, hey, I need this item from Echo this weekend. They can then decide, you know what, I'm at my kid's baseball game and I need to go get the oil changed. That's the same person. And that entire journey is about to be powered through an AI experience, and we want to make sure that you're ready for it. So our promise to you from the session today is clarity on how consumer behavior is changing in the AI-mediated world, and then 2 to 3 activation ideas. So I'm a yes and person. And for those of you who don't know what that means, someone comes to me and says we could do A or B, and I said we should do C, and that's both. And so what you're going to get today is a mixed bag of overall presentation from Nikhil and Mick. You're going to have a mentee, because I love a good mentee. That's coming up. You're going to have the opportunity to ask some questions, and we're going to ask you some questions as well. So we're keeping you on your toes today. So all that said, I'm Catie. I lead media for Ansira. Again, my job is to keep us as actionable and on time as possible today. I have sitting to my left Mick and Nikhil, and I will let them introduce themselves because they're going to do a far better job than I would. Mick, do you want to go first?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Mick. I lead our organic media team at Ansira. That's going to include SEO, social, reputation management, so owned and earned media. I've been in this space for the last 15 years. I started as a very nerdy hands-on keyboard specialist in the SEO space for automotive dealerships. Now lead a team, and I cannot promise that I will not get nerdy today. That's why I'm here. Nikhil?
I'm Nikhil. Thanks so much for having me from Forrester. We do research and give advice. I cover paid and earned media at Forrester. And so lately, that's been a lot of research and advice about how SEO is becoming GEO and what ads will look like in ChatGPT and whether we all will buy products directly from ChatGPT. So all that good stuff.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you both for being here today. We are going to start with a mentee. And so if you could pull out your phone, for those of you who have not used this before, you scan that little code right there on the screen. We're going to ask you 2 questions. This is the first question. You need to respond to this one first before you get to the second. So no cheating, folks. How is your organization using AI today? And we only give you 4 choices. So it can't possibly be that difficult. All right, well done. We get the real-time readout. This is always fun and entertaining for us. It's like a video game. Right before we were getting on stage, Nikhil was telling a story about Dance Dance Revolution. This is way more, way more fun. No one wants to see me play DDR. It is if I haven't disclosed my age already. It's like the fact that I called it DDR. Shocking to most people in the audience. I'm an elder millennial. I get to say whatever I want. Okay, we've got the results. Experimenting in pockets. I think that's totally common. We've got a couple that aren't there yet. That's fine. I think a thoughtful approach makes a lot of sense. Hopefully we can give you some action items today. Embedded in workflows 15 and then core to strategy 24. Okay, so pretty mixed bag. We're going to speak to all of these as we go through. This is really helpful grounding for us to make sure that we are staying relevant. We have everybody. Okay, here's your second question. Where do you feel the impact of AI most in your business today? This is really helpful as we frame some of the content for you. So just take a moment to consume and we'll give you a little bit of extra time on this one. Your options being organic search and content, paid media, partner enablement, and analytics and reporting.
Wow, 0 for paid media.
I was shocked by organic search and content.
I am too.
Yeah.
Also kind of pleased.
It's also validating.
Yeah.
Here's why I'm shocked. We just talked about this morning. We've had a lot of conversations with many of you, and they've all been fantastic. And you know where they all lead? CPL.
Mm-hmm.
It's really difficult to measure CPL at the beginning of the journey. And I think that makes organic search and content a really difficult hill to climb for a lot of you. It makes it difficult for us as well. We've got some kind of table stakes items that we're going to walk through today that I think will help that. So this is great to see. Analytics and reporting, this makes a ton of sense. The idea is it should be crunching the numbers for you and giving you the readouts so you can make the strategic decisions, right? We're back to human intelligence that we talked about yesterday. This is my human intelligence on stage. So this is fantastic. Let's go ahead and jump in. Thank you all for your participation. Trying to move us forward here, but I think it's just wanting to digest. Thanks, guys. I know you had to do some magic back there. I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to get some grounding information from both Nikhil and Mick in regarding AI's influence on the customer journey. So we'll start with Nikhil.
Sounds good.
Come back.
All right. Let me stand up.
Yeah, do a one.
See you all. All right.
Nice big stage.
So I'm going to share a couple things to start. 2 pages on consumer data about how behavior is actually changing because of the rise of ChatGPT, because of the rise of AI mode, what that means for your content, what that means for your websites, for your partners' content, and for your partners' websites, and then a bit about how to measure organic authority and really grow through all these changes. So there are 3 big impacts that zero-click search is having on the revenue cycle. One is well known, is that traffic is eroding. So across Forrester's clients, which I would say are generally the Fortune 1000, I'm hearing anywhere from 10% of organic and direct traffic to 40% of organic and direct traffic vanishing. And that traffic is staying in AI mode, it's staying in Perplexity, it's staying in ChatGPT instead of going to the merchant's website to learn more. So that's upper funnel and mid funnel traffic that's not getting to the site. Traffic erosion. At the same time, we're seeing about a 40% month-over-month referral growth rate. So traffic from those answer engines like AI Mode, ChatGPT, Perplexity is growing quite a bit. At the end of last year, a few of our clients were saying that they were getting a fifth of their organic and direct traffic overall, some a fourth from these answer engines. So the pattern is definitely shifting. The third big impact is sort of twofold. dark traffic here, or gray traffic is another term for it, that's traffic that's coming from bots. So it's hard to detect, hence the name dark or gray traffic. Bot traffic is way up. So I guarantee you that all of your brand's websites and your partners' websites are being flooded by traffic from GPT bot, Perplexity bot, Google bot. Those bots are training the models on product information, as well as answering questions being asked directly on the engine. Dark traffic is way up. In fact, just last week I was speaking to a client who said that they were seeing like tens of thousands of times more traffic from bots than they did pre-ChatGPT. So there's a really drastic increase. The other thing that's rising, and this is really key, is branded traffic is on the rise. So that means that when consumers or business buyers are exposed to a brand in the answer engine, they are likely to search for that brand's name as they continue down the journey. And it sounds somewhat trivial, but it's actually a really, really big deal. When they search for the brand's name, they're exposed to fewer competitors, their impulse buying intent goes up, they are primed to respond to the brand's ads when they're retargeted, and so CAC becomes more efficient because of that initial exposure to the brand on the answer engine. And that's big news because the only other channels that impact branded traffic in this way are TV and out of home, and to some extent audio and radio. So mass media channels, the most expensive, the furthest reaching channels in the world, shift folks from generic to branded terms. So are answer engines, which means that these are the first new upper funnel channels that you all have had as marketers since CTV and digital out of home. So those are a few of the impacts. I want to put a finer point on the quality of the traffic coming from the end. I think this is really important. So the gray box on the left, this is from our surveys of consumers across the US. We have UK, Canada data. This is just US. Gray box is pre-ChatGPT, call it classic search. Green box is with ChatGPT. So we all know the experience on the left. The query is 3 to 4 words. You'll spend 60 seconds, 90 seconds, ask 1 or 2 questions, click through to a site, bounce back to the search engine. That's the classic experience. Now we're seeing that the queries are 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 words. So we're going from keywords to natural language. It doesn't make sense to optimize for a few keywords in a 23-word query. Keywords to natural, that's a big shift. The session is much, much longer sometimes. And so folks are spending 20, 25 minutes at the high end doing research, asking up to 8 related questions of Gemini or of ChatGPT or of Perplexity. The click-through rate is minimal. But this is the headline. When this traffic comes to the site, they are dwelling for 3 times as long on the site on average, and they are twice as likely to convert. So this is significantly higher quality traffic from the answer engine than used to come from the search engine. And that is why it is worth it to measure visibility on these answer engines to figure out how much traffic you're actually getting from these sources, and then of course to make your brand increasingly visible on them. Okay, so higher quality traffic, that's the headline. I just want to highlight what this means for SEO. So SEO on the left, that's what we know and love. AEO is what we're calling answer engine optimization. There are 4 big changes that need to be made because of that behavior shift and because of the quality of the traffic coming. On the top row, the content needs to be multimodal. And by that I mean it is imagery and videos and infographics and FAQs and glossaries. You need to flood the zone with a variety of content to make it more likely for that content to show up in Gemini or AI mode or ChatGPT. The content has to be optimized for natural language, not keywords, because the queries are much, much longer, and every piece of content should be answering an FAQ that's being asked on the answer engine. Everything should be mapped back to that FAQ, which requires you to have a clear sense of what the voice of the customer is and what the FAQs are. Okay, so content needs to change. The content has to live off your site as much as it does on your site. So one of the quirks about answer engines is that every engine other than Google is relying on Bing's index, and Bing's index was never really important, but now it's more important than ever. Bing's index prioritizes what others say about a brand over what a brand says about itself. And so no matter how helpful your content is, it's better to have that content in the voice of a third party, like a customer or an expert in the space, than in the brand's voice. So that's content off brand sites, which really makes reputation management and PR part of search marketing in a way that hasn't been before. Another quirk in this third row is that all the bots that are flooding your sites, I mentioned Bing bot, GPT bot, Perplexbot, they cannot afford to render pages that are heavy with JavaScript. And so the headline here is that if you have a site that's designed for Googlebot, it is highly unlikely that the content on that site is going to show up on any other engine. So you're going to miss out on the opportunity to get that higher quality traffic. And finally, measurement. Brand visibility, prompt triggered visibility. These are different proxies for share of voice. Basically, you need to benchmark your share of voice on these answer engines, show how you're taking share from competitors over time, and show how branded search is growing as you're taking share. And I was telling Catie and Mick, I'm doing research right now that proves definitively that branded search lift is the strongest leading indicator of market share growth. So this is really where SEO becomes like a CFO level, board level initiative, where it's like, all right, the things we're doing with JavaScript and with PR and with content creation are actually impacting how salient our brand is in our customers' imagination and how much share we're taking in the overall market. So, and then there are a couple similarities there at the bottom. I want to specify what this means for brand to local marketing specifically. Google remains dominant. I want to be clear about that. And then within Google, there's three types of search. There's AI overviews, which are showing up about 47% of the time. But when you're searching for the nearest location near me, the map is showing up, not the AIO. When you're shopping, at the bottom of the column, the shopping ads show up, not AIO. So Google remains dominant, but consumers are obviously turning to social and increasingly answer engines. And so it's important to have your content distributed and visible across all these different touch points. The answer engines are more selective than Google in terms of local results. So I mentioned that quirk about Bing's index. So we're seeing Reddit, Yelp, we're seeing reviews on social be way more prevalent on the answer engines than they were on Google. So this is where social listening data should be part of the search marketing process, and really working with PR to make sure that there's an authoritative source that's talking about your brand as well as your brand talking about itself. And then the city level content no longer really resonates. And so Google, the last time I spoke to them about this a couple months ago, they were talking about tribalism, which is a term that folks are talking about in the zeitgeist. When Google's talking about tribalism, they're talking about the cohorts of tribes that were forming into across the country and around the world. And so it's important to figure out who these tribes are that you're marketing to, which could be in one geographical area. It could be one tribe that's like dispersed across 5 or 6 different geographies, and making sure that your content resonates at that tribal, at that cultural level. Okay, want to talk a bit about how to reorganize around this opportunity. So I mentioned PR, I mentioned social being a part of this. Basically, there's 7 functions that are involved in this process of answer engine optimization. And of these 7, only a few were really involved in SEO. And so what I'm seeing a lot of our clients do is set up centers of excellence, either run by a head of SEO that upskills and becomes an evangelist, or some folks are hiring a role like an AI orchestrator. And this person is running a center of excellence that does a few things. The COE publishes guidance so that every piece of content must do these 3 things to be answer engine friendly. Or, every new every new page that we're adding to our site, or when we're updating a sitemap, they have to do these 5 things to be answered. So that's one thing that they're doing, is that guidance. The other thing that they're doing is making sure that the data from the paid search tool, from the social listening tool, from brand surveys, from PR outreach is getting back into the hands of the head of SEO, so that, again, the voice of the customer can be centralized and aggregated in the center of excellence. So 7 roles, the one goal being to lift visibility. And, happy to talk about this and, make it custom to your situation, whether you have, an agency doing this or you're doing it in-house. Lots of resources to tap into about best practices for your content, for your website, for measurement. This tool shows how those 7 roles connect. I mentioned I'm working on research now that proves the relationship between visibility in the answer engine and market share. And so anyways, I could go on and on, but thank you. That's my email. I'll be here all day. So let's chat. And Mick, would love to hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nikhil.
So I wanted to spend the next few minutes really double-clicking on the conversation Nikhil started about how do we translate this to brand to local, right? How do we support our partners, our retailers, our agents to really take advantage of what a lot of us see as a big challenge, but I think is an absolute opportunity for anyone who's kind of paying attention and ready to go. Before I flip the slide, just kind of set the stage a little bit, Nikhil showed us some stats about the erosion of organic traffic. We're certainly seeing that with our clients coming to us, hey, my organic traffic is down. What's happening? We're also seeing increases in referrals from AI search engines, and we know that those folks who do make it to our website after they've done that AI-based research are way more valuable, right? 2 times as likely to convert, 3 times time spent on site. How do we get more of these shoppers? Because we expect to see more of them as time goes on, right? So how do we prepare our networks to address these, I guess, shifting tides? And before I show kind of how LLM works from a local marketing perspective, just wanted to touch on visibility, because it's really, from my perspective, it's all about visibility. Search has always been about visibility. We do organic search, we do paid search to get to the top of that list, whatever that search experience is like, whether that's a shopping ad or a map pack. How do we get our local partner to the top? AI is really the same. It's about visibility, but there's a much shorter list that we're trying to target. The short list of AI is a much more competitive space, and we want to talk about content strategies that we can use to really prepare our partners to be that recommended option from the AI on the short list. So this is where I said I might get a little nerdy. I apologize about the slide a little bit. My first iteration was a complete mess, so thankfully you got the second iteration. What I'm trying to do here is really help us all understand how an answer is executed by an LLM for someone doing an AI-based search. So when a prompt goes in, I need a residential plumber that meets these criteria. The LLM takes that prompt, and then it goes and hits a local partner's website. And it's going to go to Reddit, and it's going to go to Google Maps, and it's going to go to Apple Maps, and your listings, and your social media channels, and Quora. And it's going to take all this information. Wherever your brand is referenced, or wherever your local partner is referenced digitally, AI is going to find it. AI sees all is something that I put on some of my PowerPoint slides. My team internally calls this your holistic digital footprint. It's no longer just about what you say about yourself. As Nikhil said, it's about earned media. It's really about what people are saying about you. And for a long time, these have been, I would say, tactics that, from my perspective as an organic media leader, are best practices, nice to haves, but we've never really considered them as absolutely critical to how we manage our reputation or our perception online. And I think that narrative is changing a little bit. So we look at things like website SEO. That's been a critical component for Google ranking for a long time. But social media doesn't really directly influence, you call it what, classical search? I'm thinking about traditional search. It doesn't directly influence classical search. Same thing for reviews. We know having good reviews is good. If I've got a 4.5-star review and my competitor has a 3.9-star review, that's an advantage for me. But that advantage and that gap is growing as we shift more towards AI-based search. Haley from Echo was up here earlier talking about how they've grown market share because they've tried to make it really easy to do business with them. She referenced specifically warranties. And I don't know about you, but as a consumer, I hear the word warranty for a chainsaw. I'm like, ooh, I shudder a little bit. I don't want to go through that warranty process. But if I've got customers who are talking online about how great or how easy that process is with a brand like Echo, that's going to show up. When the AI gives you an answer, it summarizes, it gives you an overall conclusion, which is your short list of 3 to 6 maybe recommended partners or brands or agents, and it's going to give you evidence. And its evidence is going to be things like across reviews, we see this trend. Customers talk about how easy it is to submit a warranty file or a warranty claim with this particular brand. That might be something that kicks Echo into the short list of this particular answer. If you're a brand and maybe a competitor who has a more difficult time with warranties, you might be in that context bucket, which is the comparison to other similar entities, but those aren't on the short list. They're kind of the B team, basically, of the AI search results. So from a brand to locals perspective, I really want to kind of emphasize how many different categories are now influencing what an AI chooses to show. We've put some bubbles here on where we think partners probably, or brands, I should say, have the most immediate opportunity to impact with partner programs or playbooks or guidelines for your local networks to really help them understand how can they influence this image today. I wanted to take a minute to talk about a specific example. This is how I might set up a brand to local content strategy for a social media program on the Ansira platform today. Take a conversation with the corporate partner who defines what I think of as the non-negotiables. So these are things like brand tone, assets, color palette, things that local partners aren't allowed to change. And then create guidelines using our system or another partner who can really scale this so that you can automate localization, hyper-localization of your partner's information so that it plays well from your content on a national audience, but also plays well hyper-locally on a very local regional level. I think hyper-locally is a little bit related to the tribalism Nikhil was talking about. I don't think we've necessarily solved cohorts who have the same sort of behaviors across a swath of the company or the country, but we can drive hyper-localization so that individual users in Oro Valley can find what they're looking for. Customers really like consistency between national level brand content and local level brand content. It builds trust, makes them feel like this is a company that's got their stuff together, but also AI engines have been trained on the same things that we have. AI engines really like consistency of brand, look, and feel. It tells them that this is the same brand as opposed to differences in content, differences in styles. The AI can't read context the same way that we do, and so it's difficult for the AI to draw those similarities and those conclusions. So this is a template for how you might drive a brand to local system, and we can apply this to other areas as well. Think SEO, think about how you manage your websites, think about reputation management. If you're setting the guidelines at the brand level, those non-negotiables, and then pushing that out to your local partners, allowing them to hyper-localize and scale, that's really where we see the opportunity right now today for brands to get ahead of this change, capture more of those highly valuable AI search users. And that's really kind of what we wanted to go through from a brand to local content. I think I'm going to hand this back over to Catie to run us through some questions. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Literally, this is the conversation that started 6 months ago. You all just got a window into it. It really is just fun for me to sit and chat with these two. So we're going to do a couple of questions. Then we're going to ask you all a few questions as well. We're going to give you some key takeaways. Nikhil's going to kind of walk through what the future is and some next steps for you. So that's what's going on. We're right on time for the back half here. So if you recommend brands change one thing in local marketing to account for the shift in customer search journey, what would it be? So we just talked about customer search journey for about 20 minutes. One thing for our brands to change. Nikhil, will you start?
Yeah, I think the thing to change is the shift from keywords to natural language. I think can't be overstated. Like it is a huge shift, and And specifically, that means that you all need to have visibility into what the prompts are that people are asking. These prompts could be like 20 words long. And then what the volume of those prompts are, so that you can prioritize resources accordingly to the highest volume prompts, as well as how competitors are showing up against those prompts. And so it is a new data set that I think all of us need to become fluent in.
I think my answer would actually be related to that. I would recommend that we focus a lot more on non-branded natural language. So if we think about things that users are doing in AI search, I'm not going to Perplexity because I know I'm going to buy a Bobcat skid steer loader. I'm going to figure out like what's the right option for me, right? And so as I'm Bobcat, I don't want to pump more Bobcat specific content out, like give educational content, right? And especially using a lot of that natural language. So a little bit less focus on brand specific content, a little bit more focus on FAQs, Q&As, particularly in that long form natural language.
Totally agree.
Not to give our friends at Google any more airtime because they certainly give themselves enough. However, I remember it had to have been in the mid 2000s, maybe late 2000s, when they came out with their kind of moments marketing. Remember that? It was like, they had a whole moments journey and it was based on vertical. And I feel like what you just described is exactly that.
Yeah.
Like the moment that they're syncing it, it goes into the search as they're thinking it.
Yeah.
Not individual keywords anymore.
Right.
So I think that's a good note. So we talked about one change or one shift in the search customer journey. What's one low risk move every brand could make this quarter to be more AI ready? So now we're not talking about search or even specifically the customer journey, but one move that they could make to be more AI ready. Because I think based on where we are, there's a lot of people dabbling in certain areas, but they're like, okay, now what and what's next, right?
Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say audit your partners, your vendors to understand how AI ready they are. Making sure that if you've got a reputation management provider, like what are their options from a AI perspective? How are they integrating this big shift into their work streams and what they're offering to you? I think a lot of us pick the experimentation mode. We're sort of in experimentation mode with AI. I think a lot of vendors are in the same place. Or are you finding a AI leader in your space or in that industry that really help you along with these changes? Because someone who's a leader today is going to keep you ahead as you keep going. So do a little bit of an audit for AI preparedness.
Yeah. And to build on that, I would say implicit in everything that Mick and I discussed is the need for greater content velocity. Like if people are asking 23-word questions, they're asking 8 questions per session, you need way more content than you did before to be showing up in follow-up question 3, question 6, and question 9. And so content velocity is I think, key to this. And so that means using AI, not to, belabor the acronym, but like using that technology to increase output so that you can keep up with the pace of change and use it to increase output without creating spam. Because these answer engines are very good at detecting when content has been created automatically without the watermark of human authorship. So it's, useless to increase content velocity at the expense of domain authority or brand salience. But I think that is key.
It's one of the reasons I think you see Reddit and Quora so often, because that's a space where people have very specific questions about a problem that's not answered on a brand website or a local brand website, right? So people are having discussions about it. I think that's a great point.
I had 2 very relevant examples just based on the conversations that I've had with many of you in this room over the last 2 days. And so, Mick, just calling back to what you had said initially, and I think this is really fair, and actually calling back to what Des was presenting us through this morning, the ecosystem is complex as it sits today. All of your ecosystems are very complex. The world's ecosystem is complex. Focusing on where you can streamline it and with AI partners who are ready, and how can you take the next right step in making it less complex, I think is an incredibly valuable thought process as we're going through certainly a seismic shift in what this looks like in our ecosystem. So it's a great call out. Then the other piece of that being content. And there does need to be specific nuanced content in large volumes, which is if you train the model appropriately, exactly what you should be using it for. To your point, Nikhil. So if you think of what we heard yesterday, training the model in what you want it to produce is tremendously important. So it may work out to be less of your time. It is quality brain time on your end, not output on your end. Use the AI for output.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think a simple example would be if you've got brand guidelines in a document somewhere that you use for your local partners already, train an AI, an isolated AI engine on that brand guidelines and use it to help you create content, right? Yeah. It's going to be in that brand tone, that brand voice.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And just to build on that, I'm working on this concept of brand language models, and my call, which I think is being borne out, is that like the winners of this whole game are not going to be the public engine. Like those will become commodified search. The winners are going to be the private models that you all build that are unique to Bobcat, unique to Ream, and that gets smarter and smarter and smarter over time. The more data that they ingest, and the more distinctive they become. And we at Forrester are I would say it's code yellow, not code red, given the business we're in. So we have our own model now, and we're training it to we're training on transcripts of all the interviews that we've done with CMO level marketers. So now at the beginning of this year, I was asking the model, hey, in March I need to publish something on brand building. And then, what specifically should my angle be? And the model was hearkening back to 40 years of interviews that we've done with different marketers and saying, based on the data that we have, here's what we think your angle could be to make it unique. And that's a model that's private to us. That really, I think, is based on the strength of our IP. So I think that private models are actually going to win this game. So I like the idea you have about brand language models.
That's what Omer was talking about last night.
Okay.
Right? That's exactly the kind of success that he's been able to drive with his private model.
Okay. Yeah.
Using that to build their marketing campaigns.
All right. Now we're nerding out.
Yeah. I have
pre-warning.
I was everybody along, but well done. That I totally agree. And can't wait to see kind of some of the research that you have coming out as well. So now what? So now the question is, how do we get organized, right? So we just talked about content, so we'll start there. So if we asked an AI assistant about our brands in our top markets, what would it actually say and based on what content? And so the way that we've structured this is for you all to ask yourselves these questions, and this will obviously be something that you can take home, or if you like to take a picture, but now you can. The idea is if you reflect on these questions, it will help you prioritize what you can do next with your brand. And Nikhil is also going to talk in a hot second here about what's coming up next. But I think this is really just a helpful framework for you to step back and say, where are we in our current roadmap and what do we need to do next? So for co-op and ROI, where are we leaving co-op dollars on the table because activation is too hard or disconnected from media and measurement is literally exactly what Desiree was talking about this morning, which is what is that tax and how can we fix it, right? Omnichannel operating models. Do our national, regional, and local teams share one view of audiences, content, and funding, or three different ones? My job is literally to create omnichannel experiences for all of your individual rooftops. That is why I'm here. However, as we see every day, it is so difficult to get communication and synergy between national, regional, and local because everyone's trying to accomplish goals in a different way. A level set conversation is so helpful, and having it multiple times per year, I can tell you already, is one thing that we've seen make a lot of progress in that space. So I think all of you are, kind of challenged with things that are very similar with nuances to your vertical. These questions are designed to help you have that self-reflective moment and at least kind of take away from this, now what do I do now that I've heard Mick and Nikhil be very smart for 60 minutes or so? And with that said, Nikhil's going to give us a little bit about what's coming up next.
Yeah. So
would you like the power back, Nikhil? Okay.
Sure.
Wander.
So, okay. Yeah. So the big debate that I'm having with clients right now and with fellow analysts and with the press is where this is going. And so the big question is, will a critical mass of Americans buy stuff directly from the engines? Basically, will agentic commerce fulfill the promises that social commerce did not? Google has obviously tried to build shopping for decades and decades. They have not done it. Is this somehow going to be different? I think it is. So right now, I would say that we are in the articulate stage of this journey where the engines are very good at helping all of us have conversations with big piles of data. That's essentially what's happening. We are getting more comfortable with the assistive stage of the journey, in which these agents like Operator from OpenAI, Analyst is also from OpenAI, you have all these different agents out there. They are taking actions on our behalf. So, the agent can summarize reviews of local plumbers. The agent can compare different leaf blowers. The agent can compare different insurance policies. Ultimately, the agent can then actually transact on our behalf. And that's available. It's just a case of consumer demand catching up to supply. So they can transact. And that transaction, will occur directly on the Ansira engine. And so we'll see right now it's 10 to 40% of traffic routing. We'll see that increase even more. And so that's the big question is, where will the conversion take place? I think that the conversion will take place on the engine itself rather than the merchant's website, because it is just simply more convenient for consumers to check out there. We saw that data in the green and the gray slide. Consumers using more words in the question they're asking more questions, spending more time with the engine. So that is a leading indicator of convenience. And ultimately, we are all loyal to the most convenient experience. And if that's in the engine instead of on the website, then that's where the conversion is going to occur. So, the big debate is this like the metaverse where we talk about it for 3 years, spend billions of dollars, and it doesn't actually happen? Or is this the next big shift? I think it is the next big shift. And so let me just So, as agentic commerce popularizes, we'll see more and more ads in the engines because there'll be more and more shopping happening directly there. The ads will be bought on a CPM. That's a cost per thousand impression, not a cost per click, because this is a zero-click experience. So again, these are upper funnel channels that you all have the chance to tap into in a way that you would a billboard ad or a TV ad. That's how these media are going to perform. Okay, so the agentic stuff will happen. And then I just want to clarify the fact that this is not just a question of search engines and search engine marketing and SEO nerds like me and Mick. This is affecting how all of us search. It affects how, you'll search a database for your company's holiday schedule. It affects how someone on the shop floor who's manufacturing the Bobcat will search that database for parts. The whole point is that zero-click search and conversational search, because it is more convenient, is impacting search engines. It's impacting B2B search. It's impacting commerce search, otherwise known as site search. And cognitive search is database search. And so, there's many, many use cases. I just cover marketing. So I'm working very closely with my B2B counterparts. We have a site search analyst who's working on this. We have a cognitive search analyst on this. But the point is that the way in which we have conversations with big data across surfaces is changing. This is not a situation that's limited to the marketing discipline. So I'm seeing more and more clients think about total search strategies or holistic search strategies and say, okay, how do we make the experience on our site reflective of the experience on ChatGPT? How do we make, our HR information management system comparable to how we're making our site searchable? How do we make our code databases searchable as well? And so this is really about total search and holistic search, not just search marketing.
Fantastic. So I think we have microphones ready. Awesome. Thank you so much for your acquiescing to my request to literally have all the interaction types in this hour. So we'd love to ask you, we'd love to hear from you. Where are your biggest disconnects in your local user experience with AI today? Is it data? Is it funding? Is it finding content? Is it experiencing content? Is it activation? And this can mean different things to many of you. Some of you are B2B, some of you are B2C. So when we're saying local user experience, know that that is a loose term, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. We'll also be taking other questions after this, so feel free to start generating those. Mm-hmm. We know that there are disconnects because we pulled you earlier, and that is called using data to connect at the end. So I know you're out there. Go that one first. You want to help out? It's a charity answer. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think a bigger disconnect. I'm from Temper Sealy, John Burns, so we're in the sleep category. I think the biggest disconnect is what type of content and data can we support our retailers to enhance their discoverability. For many years, and this may be a question for you, Nick, for many years we submit, branded product pages and branded information. Now we're moving into an era where we just need our retailers to become subject matter experts in the category of sleep. So we're trying to figure out what content will enable that outcome. Point in case, should we release our full library of knowledge around wellness and sleep quality and the drivers so our retailers would enhance their sites in order to become more discoverable. So throwing it back to you for ideas around how to close that gap.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as level. I think the slide we showed a couple minutes ago about understanding what people are asking. So one of my most common recommendations is, which I would never do 2 years ago, but Google yourself. Go to ChatGPT, go to Perplexity, ask questions about those sleep habits, or what questions your customers might come into a store and ask a sales associate. What does the search result look like for those types of questions? And then, is Tempur Sealy one of those recommended options or not? And that can help you define, do I need to work on my content strategy, or is it my reputation management? Because if you really press the AI and have one of these long conversations with them, you can say, hey, why did you give me the answer that you gave me? Why did you say, user reviews suggest this? And it'll start to show you, kind of give you a peek behind the curtains of what it's what it's driving its answer. So I showed that circle of all the different kind of inputs. And I think that can help you understand, is it content strategy on my websites, or is it local PR, or are there review websites or YouTube videos out there that are kind of discussing this topic? And I think that can help you steer, maybe it's not just content, maybe it's also these other avenues. So I would say ask the AI and see kind of what answers come up. If it makes sense that there's just a lack of content about your brand or your products on there, then yeah, I think push out content and use, the pie in the sky idea would be what we talked about a minute ago, is a private AI engine that's built in your brand voice. That might be really difficult. So can you start more simply with maybe a template that can be localized to local agents and local users? I don't know if you had anything.
No? Yeah, I asked spot on. We saw one more.
That was great. Yeah, I did see another hand over there. Thank you so much for that.
And I have a call coming up with Tempur Sealy next week. I don't know if that's you or somebody else, so maybe we'll chat before that.
I sleep on their mattresses, and they're wonderful. The biggest disconnect I see, even as a company, but as a user, is we are still afraid of AI. Going back to the Minty first question, there was a huge category. We're just poking it. After being a part of a revolutionary Google experience over the last 10 years, provide some insights on why our customers and why I as a consumer generically are still afraid of AI.
Yeah. Sorry. So the question is why are people still afraid of it?
Why are people cautious?
Why are people cautious? Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, I think that caution is warranted. The engines are hallucinatory, and they amplify false information in some cases. I mean, Google famously told people to glue cheese on pizza, to eat rocks when they were just launching AI mode. So they had to walk that back. So yeah, I mean, I think that caution is obviously warranted. The risk of inaction, though, I think is much more substantial. Getting back to what I was saying with market share, if you are currently, or in the next few months, next few quarters, not getting people to associate your brand with the hot topics that are on their minds, you are going to be losing share of voice. You are definitely going to be losing share of voice to competitors. And as we've seen since the dawn of time, it is more expensive to recover share of voice than it is to actually pay to earn it. Way more expensive to recover it when lost. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I almost feel like we need to get philosophical about our fears of things like job loss, but I think we've always seen like that. That's, we're so maybe plugged into AI now that if the AI market were to crash, that would be worse than if it had never been started, right? So I think there's just a lot of like innate fear. You know, I'm an SEO old school guy, so I hear things like SEO is dead, AEO is the new SEO. I think it's more of an evolution, right? It's more of an evolution of our tactics and changing how we see how search visibility kind of exists. But that's my unique experience.
Yeah.
I was slightly terrified.
Yeah. Right. Fair enough.
I mean, I think that, a healthy skepticism is appropriate. And to your point, and you said the term hallucinatory engine, which just sounds it's like the stuff that nightmares are made of.
Yeah, totally.
The great thing about AI, just for a minute, is I remember being early on when we started using Google as a search tool, you can't talk back to it. You can try to refine your own search, but you can't have a conversation. The nice thing about this is not only is it like Common Core Math, which I could never do, it shows your work. Like it shows its worth, your point. Also, you can say, hey, that actually made no sense. That's not what I meant. Here's what I meant. What questions can you ask me to clarify what you just said?
Right.
And that's the actual conversation you can have. So I think the feedback loop, which we all love as marketers, is a good feedback loop. The feedback loop is much more transparent, if I could use that term. But the common kind of theme I've heard is healthy skepticism, and I think that rings true today.
Yeah.
I think one of the advantages that you just mentioned, context, is something that maybe I should have talked about a little bit more earlier. But one thing you can never do with Google is get context about the answer it provides, right? You just get your list of results. But the AI engine will tell you, here's why I recommended this. And in a lot of cases, that's reviews and earned media, right? Nikhil and I were having a conversation earlier about just we think earned media is really kind of about to enter its heyday because being indexed relies so much on what people say about you. And you can explore that context, like why did it recommend this particular plumber or this particular product, which you could never really do with Google before, right? It was at the top of the list, that's all you got. But the engine will say, I'm recommending this because these 20 customers across these review sets said they had a great residential plumbing experience with this particular brand. And so that context is something we've never really had before, and that really helps qualify the answer that you're getting on your AI.
Yes. Yeah, one more hand over there.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Catie.
Cute. So I had a comment as you guys were talking. I took your slide and I put it into ChatGPT to see what it said, and I had a chuckle because what I find is exactly what you said. And I think some of the frustration is that it does try to say what I like.
Yeah.
It's taken all my conversations and stated what I like. So I took the same thing and I put it into a project with a set of rules that said, ignore all of our previous conversations and answer this in the face value.
Yeah.
And the difference was insane. So I think just on this topic, I want to share my personal experiences. One, don't just use one. I take what ChatGPT says and then I put it into Claude and then I put it into Grok and I bounce between the three and watch it refine itself, which is really fun. But my larger question is that I think for myself and those around me, we all have our own little individualized experience. And I don't think that we're leveraging this enough on a company scale. And it goes back to the fear. I'm more concerned about less with the consumer. The consumers are using this, they think it's fun, and they're starting to play with it more and have more conversations and all of this stuff. But how, you talked about private models and private languages. I'm wondering if you could share some experience on what you've done internally to get onboarded with a private model so that the superiors, the boards approve uploads of mass amounts of data, because that seems to be the biggest frustration in trying to leverage these products, is being able to get approval to leverage to own your own and mine your own data in a safe, or what's viewed as a safe environment.
We called George up as a guest speaker.
I was going to say we could phone a friend.
Yeah. I mean, so I would say the clients of ours who are most advanced with this are training. Well, first of all, they're like doing a bake-off between different vendors of the model technology. So it'll be like an instance of Mistral versus an instance of OpenAI technology, et cetera. And a lot of folks are ending up with Mistral. Apparently, is the most conducive to the private model creation. They're like the OpenAI of France. And so they are taking the data that's already in their CRM and using that, which is like literally their IP, and they're using that to inform the models. Like there was an automotive brand I was speaking to who is taking data about the drivers that they have in their CRM and tuning a model on that, so that at the beginning of this year they were testing creative concepts on this like synthetic driver, and they were saying, hey, synthetic driver, here's our creative that is showing safety features. What should the color be? Where should the logo be? What feature should we call out? And the synthetic driver was recalling, the millions of signals that they've had in their CRM. And so the way that they sold it through to the CISO and the CTO was about making their brand more distinctive. They were saying that, our brand is going to become more unique and therefore more salient, and therefore we're going to beat out Mercedes-Benz and BMW in this category. And they were trying to, map the uniqueness of the brand and the health of the brand to the intent among buyers to consider that brand over others. And so I'd say that's the way to think of it. And they weren't acquiring any more data, I should say, to actually do this model. They had this, vast amount of IP that was just sitting there that was underutilized that they're tapping into. Same with us at Forrester with all the marketing transcripts that we've done, with all the interviews that we've done.
Mick, do you want to address any of the data mining that we've done from a media perspective? We can give a couple of examples of how your team's been using it, even if it's the kind of the brand visibility that you've done.
Yeah. So my team and I believe that brand sentiment is really important in AI-based search. So that's what we're calling like what people say about you and like how do you appear on the AI search? Like we were talking about a second ago with context. And so what we're doing is we're scraping, collecting user reviews about a brand like Ansira and say, hey, like what are people saying about us in the marketplace, and using that as our own sort of data mine to make decisions. I think your question was very specific to like how do I set up a private AI sort of instance? I'm not the right person to answer that question, unfortunately.
But George can help. But George, haven't met George.
George can help.
George, raise your hand right there in front. George can definitely help.
And I think Nikhil provided a really good example of how like we're seeing success with that, and Omar talked about it too. So they're there, but I think that's also for a lot of us in this room, that's almost leading edge, right? Is setting up that. We're kind of exploring that now.
Yeah, I will kind of, and I know we're very close to time, and I would love to get you all to lunch, which is a nice long break. One thing I will say is that data integrity is so key in this effort. And I think you started to kind of touch on that, which is as an organization, there's a ton of data and it's not all relevant and it's not all clean.
Yeah.
And so as you build this in an organization, I would recommend that you really focus on what data is it powered by and where is that coming from and who has access to it, and start from there, because you're going to easily frustrate people if all of a sudden you have a model that you've set up or an agent that you've set up and it's pulling incorrect data or it's pulling dirty data. So I would just note that, and George has done a beautiful job of that with Ansira. So I think that's something you could chat with him about. All of that said, thank you so much for this time.
We got one more question.
Oh, we do? Okay, quickly. They're going to yell. They're going to like hook me.
Okay.
It's bad.
In the shift from keyword to AEO, you talked about you need to know the prompts people are using. So a little bit to what you were saying, Mick, you guys are going out there scraping. Like how is the best way to ask what prompts are people using? I mean, like all I can think of is you use AI.
If you don't know where to start, so you can ask AI, right? Like what types of things are people are asking. If you don't know where to start, I think a really great way would be to go to a place like Google, who has been using people also ask for a long time. It's something that I think about as like a Google feature. You probably think about, but most consumers don't even see it. But if you go to Google and ask a question about a brand, like, hey, like how comfortable are Tempur Sealy mattresses? You're going to get a list of related questions. And you're going to get that list of related questions because that's what other people are asking. And that would just be a place to kind of start and get those kind of creative brainstorming ideas going. You can easily spend a half hour asking a bunch of questions once you get started and not even realize it. So I think get started there. Happy to also talk about, some specific customers I've talked about to kind of understand what's maybe a base set of questions or keywords I might want to use and help you get started with that.
Nikhil, anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to say that there are, SEO platforms who are providing that kind of visibility. Then there's a whole cottage industry of point solutions who are being funded to provide that visibility. Agencies are building that technology, and then social listening tools are also building that technology. So there are 4 categories. I'm doing an evaluation on those 4 categories in May of this year. But happy to talk about some vendors specifically.